Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second try of my beginning presentation. And that is for CrystalCon 2026, and that is Opening the Box, Accessibility, AI, and the Responsibility in the Emergent Tech Era. I just want to thank you for being here. If you're not watching this live, you might have watched it live earlier today, maybe because I had some technical issues, and or you're watching this in the future, which that's more likely. My name is Crystal Preston-Watson, and so I'm gonna take you today. We're gonna explore the intersection of the three critical topics: AI, accessibility, and responsibility. But before we dive in, I want to offer some caveats and kind of level set on where I'm coming from. AI is a tricky topic that has taken over pretty much all facets of society, whether people want it or not. People have very strong feelings about this, both for and against. So first, I'm approaching AI with skepticism, including because I have been personally impacted by AI-driven job displacement. I previously worked at a company, and my position was eliminated, and it was specifically said by the CEO that elimination had to do with AI. Second is that I'm not here to sell AI or condemn anyone from using it. I'm here to describe what I am seeing, especially what it means for accessibility and people with disabilities, and what responsibility looks like now that this technology is already in the world. I want to be responsible and honest about that perspective that I have before we begin. So I like to begin this conversation with the story of Pandora. In Greek mythology, Zeus gave Pandora, so Zeus is the king of all the gods, the Greek gods, and he gave Pandora, and so Pandora was created as a retribution to Prometheus for Prometheus giving humanity fire. Zeus didn't really like humans. He liked that they worshipped him, but that was all it. And Prometheus gave them fire, so they became self-sufficient. And Zeus didn't like that, so he had Pandora created to get back at Prometheus. And so Zeus gave Pandora a jar, which is also, it's usually mistranslated into box, Pandora's box, but it was a jar. So he gave this jar to Pandora as a wedding gift with strict instructions to never open it. But Zeus also gave her the gift of curiosity. And that curiosity gnawed at her until one day she opened the jar, and out stormed all the evils of the world: sickness, death, sorrow, and war. Pandora, obviously panicked and slammed the lid shut. But later on, she heard a small voice inside, and she opened it again, and out fluttered out hope. And even though the evils were released, hope was let out into the world as well. So why talk about Pandora? And I do because humanity has an insatiable curiosity that pushes the boundaries of knowledge and technology. Up on the screen, the slide says AI box, Pandora's box, human curiosity, and the quest for tech advancement. And there is an image of this kind of witch. She is nude, coming out this cauldron surrounded by computers, and that is kind of how it's a personification. It's how personification of, I think, humanity's kind of relationship with technology. I think so. But AI is the modern manifestation of that curiosity, right? Um, and we have essentially opened a Pandora's box of technology. AI offers like unprecedented potential to solve complex problems. That's, the unboxed potential. But like Pandora's jar, it has released significant ethical quandaries, bias, job displacement, and environmental costs regarding data centers and displacing communities, um, and consuming massive amount of resources, both energy, water, and etc. Regardless how we feel, whether we think it shouldn't exist or we love it, it's out. There's no undo button. The box is open. Now we have to decide how to deal with it. Here's the reality we must face. All technology needs to be accessible. This includes AI. Technology is the cornerstone of our society. People rely on it for jobs, school, and essential services. And when it isn't accessible, we leave people behind. We are talking about over 15% of the global population, over a billion people with disabilities. Accessibility isn't an upgrade or a bonus. It is a human right. While AI has the potential to help in its current implementation, let's be honest, it often creates and reinforces barriers for people with disabilities. And we have to remember that AI is just a continuation of the technology we already have. It really isn't anything new. It sounds like it's, completely independent of humans, but it's not. And unfortunately, a lot of existing technology is already inaccessible because accessibility is often an afterthought. Okay, so on this current slide, there is a robot, and he's pushing a man in a wheelchair down a ramp. And so we often see kind of imagery like this, a robot helping a human, but we have to ask, is the help actually helpful, or is it performative? AI is often marketed as a tool that will automatically make things accessible, but without intentional design, it can just automate exclusion. If we throw AI onto a process that's already broken or inaccessible, we haven't fixed anything. We've just made the exclusion faster and more automated. Assistance isn't automatically accessibility. If a system assumes what a disabled user needs, without any input from disabled people, it can easily create new friction, even while claiming to help. And so, what do I mean by barriers? And so, I mean anything that prevents equitable use, and that is visual, auditory, physical, cognitive, and systematic and policy. Many barriers are invisible to non-disabled people, but deeply impactful in practice, especially when AI becomes the default interface to get help, services, or information. Some examples for like physical and visual barriers are touchscreen only interfaces that exclude, if you have motor, you have motor disabilities, you have physical disabilities, or you're someone who is blind and low vision, and you cannot read, visually see what is on that touch face. And a lot of people who are blind and low vision rely on tactile, if they read braille, or they type, because they use a screen reader. So when you have if you have just a touch only interface, you exclude those people. And then you have cognitive barriers, and that is like complex, inconsistent designs that increase cognitive load. And that's something that is very prevalent in a lot of these AI tools, especially tools that sit on top of some of the more popular models. And that is, ChatGPT, that is Claude, that is, all the, there's tons of models out there and they're very popular, and a lot of things sit on top of it, and then they add to, they're not very inherent. They throw a lot of information. And for anyone that has cognitive disabilities, it becomes a very, big issue, a barrier to getting the things that they need. And systematic and policy barriers. And those are biases in data and policy that exist before the user even touches the screen. So first, like reinforcing existing barriers. First, AI can automate inaccessible processes, and that's taking something already broken, and that's forms, workflows, support systems, and scaling it without fixing accessibility. And that is a huge issue because a lot of those things, forms and things, are really, they're a lot of times are very inaccessible. And so we think, well, if we automate it, it becomes better, and it doesn't. There's no analyzing, well, okay, does something need to be improved to make sure access is going to be automated along with that? And that's not considered. And so you just automated something that is still blocking a huge group of people. And then second, AI creates a two-tiered system that amplifies the digital divide. If the accessible version of anything, and that includes AI, requires a newer device, higher bandwidth, or paid tiers, then access becomes, that you have the haves and the have-nots. To get the best, most capable versions of an LLM, and that's ChatGPT or a Gemini, you have to pay. And I paid for both of these for my research, and it's expensive. It's a monthly, or you can pay yearly, and they are a couple $100. I paid monthly because I did not want to, I did not want to spend a couple $100 up front. And, I could if I wanted to, but again, I had the, I am fortunate, and I'm in a place of, where I could do that, but many people are not. So that is something that is really being reinforced. The digital divide is becoming vast and more deeper because of AI and the over-reliance on it to access, really to upward mobility. And then we have creating new barriers. So beyond, beyond reinforcing the old ones, we're seeing algorithmic bias and discrimination. AI models are trained on data from the internet. And let's be honest, the internet is a hodgepodge of bias and incomplete data. There is not a lot of accurate representation of people with disabilities in that data because society is often uncomfortable talking about disability. This leads to AI making harmful assumptions, like assuming that someone with ADHD won't use a screen reader, or failing to recognize diverse skin tones and facial recognition. If the data set excludes disability, the AI views disability as an outlier or an error. So kind of coming back to, the previous picture. So now we have a robot that is pushing a man in a wheelchair. So, and this, and I, again, this kind of showcase when we replace human interactions with AI, like customer service or assistance, we often create a labyrinth for users. If a person with a disability needs to resolve a complex issue and is forced to deal with a chatbot that doesn't understand their specific assistive technology or speech patterns, we haven't made their life easier. We've blocked them from a vital service. We cannot automate empathy, and we cannot automate accessibility if the underlying system is flawed. So how do we move forward? And that is, we move forward by shifting the mindset. Accessibility cannot be an afterthought. We need to view accessibility as a mark of intelligence. And it is. Digital accessibility is intelligence, because a system that cannot adapt to human diversity and the diverse needs of humans isn't very smart. Inclusion must be the baseline, and we have to be proactive and not reactive in that. And that very much includes AI. So here are some key principles for accessible AI development to achieve this. And first is inclusive data sets. We must ensure training data represents people with disabilities to mitigate bias, not migrate bias, to mitigate bias, interdisciplinary collaboration, and teams. We need teams that include AI developers, designers, and crucially, people with disabilities. Nothing about us without us definitely applies here. And 3, inclusive design from the start. We must design for multimodal input and output from day one, ensuring compatibility with accessibility, with assistive technology and tools like screen readers. So I do want to highlight there is some hope in that jar of AI. I personally believe there are some good uses of AI, and I do use them. So I use Be My AI, and it's part of Be My Eyes, which offers assistance to people who are blind and low vision. As I said, as someone with low vision, I like having a tool that can describe my surroundings and read labels for me. I use it to read a lot of labels. Sometimes my vision is so poor that I need something to describe, what is before me, and Be My AI allows me to do that without having to contact someone else. And this is an example of AI properly applied to solve a barrier. But it works only because it was designed with the specific needs of the blind and low vision community in mind. And I know for me, it's like, yeah, I really never used Be My Eyes because I didn't really, as someone who also has social anxiety, I did not want to actually talk to another human when I was doing, when I'm stressed out and I'm not, my vision is like, I'm already upset. So this allows me to get what I need and be self-sufficient and, and not have to also deal with the anxiety of talking to a stranger. That being said, usefulness doesn't remove the need for accountability around privacy, accuracy, and environmental cost. So at this point, I want to shift into an experiment that I conducted, and that is what happens when I ask, popular LLMs to generate an accessibility talk. What do they emphasize and what do they miss? So what I did is I prompted both Gemini and ChatGPT to generate a talk on accessibility, specifically asking what the model would tell humans about accessibility. And the point wasn't to outsource expertise. I have done many, many, many of these talks. So, I could generate them just impromptu. I don't need this to do that. But I wanted to see what a non-expert might receive. And the results were okay. They weren't terrible, but they were genetic, and they really just reflected what I put into prompts. Even though I tried to be as neutral as possible, I was putting in, my knowledge still kind of got into there. And that is where the danger lies, is that most people that, ask, ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, Claude, in whatever, for information, and they get a response and they just present it with as the truth. And and if you don't really verify your information, you accept AI's hallucinations or biased output as truth, you're going to really perpetuate myths, perpetuate misinformation. And so you can find both of these talks generated by Gemini and ChatGPT. They are currently up on my channel, so you can judge for yourself. But my takeaway is that they cannot replace lived experience and expertise. Again, they can only give what's currently out there, and it's one of those things of you put you get out of it what you put into it. So, and that can be both good and bad. So, kind of coming back to the one of the earlier slides of the AI unbox with the half-nude personification of AI. Yeah, the box is open and we cannot close it. We can't wish AI away. And I know there's tons of people that do, and I know I'm going to hear about it from them about this talk. But what we can do is, and what we need to do is fight for a future where AI has, responsible and accessible implementation, that, there's guidelines that consider ethical, environmental, and community costs. It's our collective responsibility to ensure that when we look inside that box, that jar, along with all the challenges, that we can still find and craft. And that is it. Thank you for listening to my talk.